Close your eyes and listen. It is 60,000 years ago, and the wind screaming through the Dordogne Valley of what is now France is not just cold. It is a physical, violent force. The temperature has plummeted far below freezing. Out here, the air is so biting that frostbite can claim human tissue in under 10 minutes. If you were to drop a modern human into this exact landscape, stripped of our synthetic fleece, our heated homes, and our absolute reliance on modern infrastructure, they would be dead in 3 hours. Yet, as the absolute darkness of an Ice Age winter falls, a Neanderthal mother is methodically wrapping her children in meticulously processed, waterproof hides. She does not panic. She does not have a lighter or matches. And according to shocking recent archaeological evidence, she might not even have a fire. For decades, the story of human evolution has been told through a lens of modern arrogance. We assumed that early hominins survived the brutal cold simply because they mastered the flame. But the Earth's archaeological record is whispering a much more disturbing, yet profoundly inspiring truth. Across multiple prehistoric sites during the most unforgiving glacial periods, researchers have found mysterious fire gaps. Extended periods spanning generations where families lived, worked, and thrived in the freezing depths of winter without producing a single speck of charcoal or ash. How did a species conquer the Earth's most brutal climate for 400,000 years with an unpredictable, completely unreliable relationship with fire? The answer shatters everything we thought we knew about our prehistoric cousins. It is a story not just of brute survival, but of unparalleled genius, invisible engineering, and a profound resilience that we, as modern humans, desperately need to rediscover today. To understand the Neanderthal mind, we must first abandon the cartoonish stereotype of the grunting, club-wielding caveman. True civilization, we are told, began with the construction of the first temples and agricultural settlements. But history's true first architects worked in pitch blackness. Deep beneath southwestern France lies the Brunekell Cave. In total darkness, exactly 336 meters away from any natural daylight, archaeologists uncovered a reality that defies modern comprehension. Here, 176,500 years ago, Neanderthals systematically shattered 400 stalagmites and arranged them into precise, mathematical, circular monuments, weighing a collective 2 tons. Let that sink in. This construction predates any known structure built by our own species, Homo sapiens, by an astonishing 140,000 years. That gap of time is longer than our entire existence on this planet. But why do this? What drives a group of hunter-gatherers deep into a terrifying, lightless abyss? The answer is a masterclass in prehistoric thermodynamics. While the surface of Ice Age Europe was a lethal, frozen wasteland, deep underground cave systems maintain a constant, unyielding temperature of around 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius, year-round. They realized that the Earth itself was a thermal blanket. This wasn't just finding a hole to hide in, it was calculated urban planning. At sites like La Ferracie and Moldova, we see intentional renovations of the Earth. They carved specific pits into sterile sediment, calculating exactly where rising body heat would collect and circulate. They didn't just stumble upon warm spots, they engineered them. At Moldova, they constructed vast, mathematically calculated domes from over 100 mammoth bones. They divided their shelters into specific thermal zones: sleeping quarters where warm air naturally rose, activity areas in the center, and cold storage depressions below. This required a shared architectural language, a prehistoric building code passed down through muscle memory and oral tradition. They understood convection currents millennia before the word physics existed. When fire is a luxury, when it might disappear for weeks due to apocalyptic blizzards or a lack of dry fuel. Every alternative technology you develop must be absolutely flawless, or your entire bloodline ends. Because they could not rely on the flame, Neanderthals became the world's first chemical and materials engineers. We see this brilliance in their understanding of mineral properties. At multiple sites across France, evidence shows Neanderthals traveling up to 40 kilometers, a brutal 3-day trek through glacial conditions, just to collect manganese dioxide. For years, scientists assumed this was pigment for body paint. The truth is far more pragmatic. Manganese dioxide lowers the ignition temperature of wood by a staggering 360 degrees Fahrenheit. They were using chemical catalysts to force damp, freezing wood to catch a spark when their rudimentary fire-making tools failed. They were manipulating chemical reactions to cheat death. But their true masterpiece was in material science. In the freezing cold, a wet animal hide is a death sentence. It freezes into a solid, unbending sheet of ice. To survive, they had to invent waterproof, flexible fabric. Archaeologists have found perfectly preserved bone tools called lissoirs. Astonishingly, these tools are virtually identical in shape and function to the implements used today by elite luxury brands like Hermes to burnish and waterproof high-end leather. Neanderthals invented this tool 10,000 years before modern humans even set foot in Europe. Furthermore, they didn't just use any bone. Out of a massive graveyard of reindeer, they specifically selected the ribs of large bovids, ancient cattle. Modern material science tells us why. Only bovid ribs possess the exact combination of density, porosity, and flexibility required to compress leather fibers without tearing the hide. Coupled with the use of oak bark tannins, a chemical process that fundamentally alters the protein structure of animal skin, they manufactured highly insulated, waterproof garments. They were running industrial-scale production lines. Recent discoveries at Neumark Nord reveal operations where massive numbers of elephants and rhinos were processed systematically, not just for meat, but to extract every ounce of fat. This fat was a prehistoric Swiss army knife, used to waterproof their tailored garments, mixed with ochre for skin protection, and consumed as a high-density energy source. They were managing resources on a scale we previously thought was exclusive to modern industrial societies. Yet all the waterproof leather and engineered shelters in the world mean nothing without the heat source to warm them. Without reliable fire, that heat source had to be the Neanderthal body itself. Evolution is a ruthless editor. Over hundreds of thousands of years, it sculpted the Neanderthal anatomy into the ultimate biological heating system. We look at their prominent, large noses and see a primitive trait. In reality, CT scans reveal nasal passages 29% larger than ours, featuring complex internal structures that acted as high-performance heat exchangers. When they breathed in freezing Ice Age air, the blood vessels in their expansive nasal cavity instantly warmed it, ensuring it reached their lungs at safe body temperatures. Their barrel-shaped rib cages were built to house massive lungs, processing nearly double the airflow of a modern human. They needed this extraordinary oxygen intake because they were essentially walking metabolic furnaces. In the dead of winter, a Neanderthal burned between 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day. Isotope analyses proved they maintained these staggering metabolic rates year-round. Their stocky build, with shorter limbs and broader torsos, perfectly adhered to the laws of thermodynamics, minimizing surface area to retain core heat. They generated internal warmth equivalent to a continuous 40-watt heating system. When you place this biological furnace inside a perfectly tailored, waterproof leather suit, and put that suit inside a strategically engineered, draft-free underground chamber, fire suddenly transforms from an absolute necessity into a mere luxury. It is easy to look at bone tools and skeletal structures and see only mechanics. But the archaeological record hides something far more profound about the Neanderthals. It documents a deep, unyielding compassion. And compassion, it turns out, is a survival strategy. Consider the reality of living in an environment where a single twisted ankle could mean starvation. At the Shanidar cave in modern-day Iraq, archaeologists discovered the remains of an elderly male. He was blind in one eye, lacked a lower right arm, and suffered from severe arthritis. In a survival of the fittest, savage society, he would have been abandoned. Yet, his bones tell a story of healing. He lived for years, perhaps decades, after his injuries. He survived because his community fed him, carried his share of the burden, and protected him through the brutal winters. Similarly, at La Ferracie, the remains of a child with severe congenital abnormalities who survived to age 3 were found. This required constant, round-the-clock care in conditions where merely feeding healthy individuals was a monumental task. They refused to leave their vulnerable behind. To truly grasp how sophisticated their survival system was, we must look at a modern, real-world equivalent. In 2025, a team of experimental archaeologists set out to test Neanderthal technologies in brutal winter conditions. Volunteers lived for 3 weeks in reconstructed shelters, wearing only reproduced prehistoric clothing and utilizing 0 modern heating sources. The results were a humbling blow to modern ego. The birch bark tar, used by Neanderthals for waterproofing, outperformed modern beeswax, remaining perfectly flexible at -40 degrees, while the modern equivalent cracked and failed. The layered leather garments successfully maintained the volunteers' core body temperatures at -22 degrees Fahrenheit. Most critically, the underground shelters remained 35 to 40 degrees warmer than the surface outside, purely from trapped body heat. This mirrors the survival of indigenous Arctic peoples, like the Inuit, who for centuries relied on animal fats, layered furs, and igloos, which trap metabolic heat, to conquer the cold. Time and time again in modern history, we see stories of high-tech Western explorers perishing in the Arctic because their modern, synthetic gear became wet and froze, while indigenous peoples, using ancient, time-tested principles analogous to Neanderthal tech, thrived. The Neanderthal system worked because it was built on redundancy. If the fire went out, the clothes worked. If the clothes got wet, the shelter worked. If the shelter failed, their biological metabolism bought them time. It was supreme risk management. If they were so perfectly adapted, so intelligent, and so compassionate, why did they vanish? The answer is not a tale of a superior modern human sweeping in and conquering a primitive beast. Around 39,000 years ago, the Earth's climate became catastrophically unstable. Seasonal patterns that had been reliable for millennia began to shift violently every few years, and the massive megafauna they relied on for food began to disappear unpredictably. Combined with this, the Neanderthal population was historically tiny. When Homo sapiens arrived, we did not bring superior intellect, we brought sheer numbers, offering demographic resilience against the climate chaos. In fact, shortly after our ancestors encountered Neanderthals, modern human campsites suddenly show evidence of Neanderthal technology, like lissoir leather tools and the systematic use of manganese dioxide. We didn't replace them through superiority. We survived because we were taught by them. We absorbed their knowledge. But perhaps their greatest lesson is one of mindset. For 400,000 winters, without electricity, without metal, and often without the comfort of a warm fire, the Neanderthals survived. They survived longer than our own species has even existed. Their greatest invention was not a stone tool or a chemical process. Their greatest invention was an absolute, unbreakable refusal to accept impossibility. They looked into the howling, freezing void of the Ice Age, and decided to live. And somewhere, in the 2 to 4% of Neanderthal DNA that runs through the veins of billions of people alive today, that fierce, unyielding resilience still survives. The question is, will we remember how to use it before we face our own winter?